Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Namaste Wellness Show, where we talk about all things holistic health for the mind, body, and spirit, for people and pets with a touch of cultural soul. I'm Lori, your host. Thank you so much for being with me again today. So I am really excited to be doing part 3 with Miss Pat McKay. She is a homeopathy and nutrition expert for pets. And I think, Pat, are you there?
Yeah, good morning.
Oh, okay. I heard a click. I didn't know if you hung up because you are on audio again today. So I just want to welcome you back to talk to us about homeopathy and mental health today, as well as a few other topics regarding homeopathy and nutrition for pets. So let's get right into it. The last couple of weeks we've been talking about feeding our cats and dogs a raw-based diet. We've talked about how homeopathy can help them with various conditions, not just for pets, though. You also work with humans as well. So during the show, I hope you don't mind, I do have a couple questions regarding anxiety and depression for humans, but if we can go ahead and just start talking about how can homeopathy help with pets, with cats and dogs who may have anxiety, depression, and how does that happen? I mean, how does that come about, and how can we help with homeopathy?
Well, my belief is that the major cause for any effect on the brain or the mind is caused by vaccines, chemicals, drugs, and commercial pet foods, because commercial pet foods have chemicals in them, and many of them just have fillers that aren't nutritional. So when I get a request from someone, I tell them the very first thing they need to do is start feeding their animals properly. And then once you do that, then we deal homeopathically with anxiety, depression, and believe me, dogs and cats have exactly the same as people when it comes to mental health. And it just, and that's when I need a full questionnaire filled out so that I have background on the animal. And then from that background, I have a pretty good idea what remedy they will, I have a pretty good idea what the problem is. And then I will find the appropriate remedy, homeopathic remedy, because you don't want to use more drugs. In other words, if you go to the vet, you're just going to get more drugs. Well, that's part of the problem, because all drugs, vaccines, chemicals go to the brain. People have to understand that. And when those drugs cause damage to the brain, then the brain is very complex. And any symptoms that you see that are related, such as anxiety, depression, aggression, all those things, you know the brain has been damaged. And it's going to take weeks, months, maybe even a couple of years for that damage to be healed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's that serious, yes.
Well, okay, so what about the environment? Because I've had people say, "Oh, my cat or dog has anxiety," and I understand the chemicals in the food, but does a pet's environment, in terms of if there's someone, if there's chaos in the home or something like that, can that also affect a, a cat or dog's?
In the home is the worst. Just like parents don't like to have their children hear their arguments, dogs and cats shouldn't hear these arguments either. They do pick up on the tone of voice and the anger, and they can't do anything about it. Oh, they
True.
may come and sit on your lap or give you a couple of licks or do something to make you feel better, but just like children, they're at a loss. They don't know how to make things better, and it's upsetting to them.
Right.
Or any harsh words. If it isn't the words themselves, it's the tone. In other words, you yell at your dog and you use a swear word. It's not the swear word, it's the tone of your voice when you say it.
Right. So it either, it could
You
be.
have to be careful. You have to be careful around your animals, just like you would around children.
Right. Because I noticed too that loud, it seems that cats and dogs, and particularly from what I'm learning, from, my own research and raising my own cats, and talking to natural vets and people that work holistically with pets, is that their environment does have a lot to do with it. So loud noises, like you said, arguing, yelling at your animal, because they tend to have a higher sensitivity even than humans. So their nervous system may be a little bit more tuned in than the average human. Does that make sense
I
to you?
agree with you. Yes.
Okay.
And their hearing is much more profound.
Correct.
Than people's. Yes.
So they sense things a lot more, and they hear things a lot more, better, because they can hear things we can't hear. So if we're raising our voice, to us it may sound one level, but to them it's over the top. So
exactly.
And that, yeah. So what if a animal, because I have a client that has, and I've known several people who put their dogs and or cats on behavioral medication, psychotropic medication, the same that you would prescribe for a human. If they are on that type of medication, can they still take a homeopathic remedy that could help the condition?
Depending on the medication, in most situations, I tell them stop the medication and do the homeopathic remedy. And people notice a difference right away. Continuing to use a chemical is just doing more damage to the brain. And that's for people too.
Of course, exactly. Yeah. I was going to ask.
To consider doing non-allopathic drugs. Just don't do them. turn to homeopathy and realize what natural products can do that drugs cannot. I just keep saying that all the time. Why not use natural products? Things that are good for everybody.
Well, I guess for one reason, if people don't know about them or they don't know why, the big question is, why should I use a homeopathic remedy when I can go to the doctor, my insurance company will pay for my medication, so why homeopathy? I mean, are there any side effects? There are side effects of allopathic drugs. We know that. Are there side effects of homeopathic remedies?
No, there are no side effects. Now, just that alone, you would think people would give a second thought to using natural products, but they don't. But that's because this country has become so addicted to drugs in general. There's not a MD, DVM, any buddy that has a doctor in medicine of any kind ever is told in school that drugs aren't okay, but they aren't.
So if a medical doctor, when he goes to medical school or she goes to medical school, that they're not taught, they're taught allopathic medicine. So I guess my other point is, if you don't know something, then you're going to go with what you know, and it's quick and easy. So you can get a pill maybe to cure your headache right now, but if you take a homeopathic remedy, it might make you feel ill in the beginning, but then it'll cure the problem. So I think people want things that are quick and easy.
Or it might take away the headache immediately. You never know how a homeopathic remedy is going to react. That's why after I tell somebody to take a remedy or to give one to their animal, I want to hear back from them within hours, a couple of days, whatever. As soon as they see any change at all, I want them to email me, tell me what that change was, and I'll tell them what's going on. It's the change after taking the homeopathic remedy that tells me what's going on. And for most people, they don't have any idea how a homeopathic remedy responds. They just don't. But that's why I'm here, to tell them and explain it to them.
Right. And I just want to reiterate, you've been doing this for close to 40 years, homeopathy or more, and you have been working with people and you've had success working with people with homeopathy, and this is all you've ever used as remedies for people and pets. So I'm kind of playing the devil's advocate, saying why people might not want to use homeopathy if they don't know about it, if they think it's too expensive, if it's not, they don't, they're used to going to their medical doctor. And, these are just some of the reasons why not to use it. And I'm playing devil's advocate because I want people to start thinking more about holistic remedies, about homeopathic remedies, and especially, so I want to also just confirm there are homeopathic remedies that can help with anxiety and depression, is what I'm hearing you say. I'm also still not clear. Are you also saying that you should not take homeopathic remedies at the same time you're taking allopathic remedies, prescriptions? Because I don't know. I still don't know.
Because the homeopathic remedy can't work if you're still doing drugs.
Got it.
You
Okay.
see what I mean?
I got you. Right. Okay. Okay. And we also know that you can use, well, you're saying that the any anxiety, depression that the cat might or dog might have, or any animal. I mean, it's the same thing to me with any animal, as you said. Even with children, the environment, drugs can affect animal's behavior as well as humans' behavior. Um, and so, how can we, or what would be the step if somebody is already on drugs? Or a pet. Let's still focus on pets here. What if a person has been feeding their pet kibble, canned food for most of their lives, and then they say, "Oh, I want to try homeopathy." Is it that easy for them? I mean, I'm sorry. Oh, I want to start, and I'm switching gears. I'm talking about eating the raw diet first, because you said the pet food has chemicals and drugs in it. So if they want to change and start eating a raw diet, isn't there? How do you do that? Can you just switch that easily for a pet who's been eating kibble or canned food for years and years?
Well, with dogs, it's usually very easy. You put down the raw meat and they eat it immediately. They know that's real food. Sometimes cats will do that as well, but more often than not, cats, once they're imprinted with the food when they're weaned, that's where they want to stay.
Right.
Here's the difference. In the wild, dogs and cats hunt everything and eat what they hunt. When puppies in the wild are set out, the parents teach them how to kill and then start eating the raw food. With cats already know how to kill. Isn't that interesting? When they're tiny kittens, as soon as they're ready to be weaned, mom takes them out and she doesn't have to teach them to kill.
It's instinctive.
Teach them is what is a good food for them and what might be actually harmful in the wild. In other words, take the example of a vole. A vole from the hind end looks exactly like a mouse. You can't tell the difference. So the kitten runs up, kills the vole, and mom says right away, no, you can't eat that. You leave that for a dog or somebody else, but you can't eat a vole. And then the cat with a kitten will go on to kill something else, and she'll say, "Oh, that one's okay." Do you see what I mean? In other words, they are taught what wild prey is okay for them and what isn't.
Got it. Okay.
And dogs can eat most anything, everything from killing a deer in a pack to eating roadkill. I mean, they're quite different.
Okay.
So for cats, I usually have to help people through it. In other words, for instance, if your cat is eating only kibble, then first thing you need to do is soak that kibble in some raw meat broth. That way they'll get the smell of the raw meat, but they'll still be eating their kibble, and their kibble will be soft and high and full of fluid, because cats were never, ever meant to eat dry food. They don't eat dry food in the wild. If something has been dead for a while, that the dogs come along and eat it. Cats
Okay.
eat only fresh kill.
Okay. So like their larger counterparts. That's how lions and tigers and the large cats eat, correct? They eat
Yep,
fresh
yep.
kill. Yeah.
Cats are cats.
Cats are
Whether they're a
cats.
tiger or they're a
Or a lion or
little ocelot in the wild, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Size doesn't make any difference.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So I had a follow-up question to that, but let's talk a little bit about um so in other words, just summarizing in terms of mental health and homeopathy, you really need to be mindful of the environment. You be mindful of the food that you're feeding that has the drugs in it, any medications that your animal is taking. And if you want to switch to homeopathy, you can reach out to Pat. And the best thing is to do that questionnaire because that'll tell you all about the behaviors and what's going on. And that's the best way to know what homeopathic remedies are going to be recommended by Pat or a DVM holistic veterinarian that uses homeopathy as well. Um, I want to talk a little
Because
bit of.
you may
Go
have
ahead.
two cats that you think are identical, but they have different symptoms.
Good point.
And so then when I suggest a remedy, one remedy may be, even though, let's say the two cats are not eating well. Well, for one cat, I might have one remedy, and for the other cat, I may suggest a different one. You see what I mean? Because
Yes.
it's all the different subtleties of each animal's complete background. It isn't just one symptom. There are always other symptoms. It's just that people aren't used to looking for symptoms.
Right.
And that's what
That's true.
they will learn when they work with me. Yeah.
That's interesting, the subtleties that we don't really pay attention to. And, a lot of people say, for example, oh, my cat or even a dog, peed, pees on the carpet or a cat sprayed on the door, or sprayed on the curtains. And a lot of times people will say that's because they're mad at me or they have a behavior, but it could be that that's a symptom, correct? Of
Correct. Yes. Yep.
and what are some of the reasons why a cat or dog would pee other than where they would normally pee, maybe for a dog
It's
they didn't
because
they didn't
they're
get to go out.
trying to tell you that their urinary system is not up to par. I mean, how else? A cat can't tell you verbally.
Right.
So the cat is going to do whatever he or she can to let you know. A cat who doesn't, for instance, a cat who doesn't go in their litter box, but goes on a rug or a spot in your house and there's no litter box there. Your cat is trying to tell you something.
Right.
And we do have to guess to some degree what might be going on, but in more cases than not, it's like 90% kidneys. Cats have lots of kidney symptoms. Dogs have lots of skin symptoms. And why? I don't know. That's just how it is.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about common ailments. We've talked about stomach ache. I think you said. So what are some and you might be the same answers, but why do cats and dogs, I know this sounds like a dumb question, why do cats and dogs get fleas and ticks? And is it somehow related to immunity?
Because their immune systems have been damaged. And here again, it's vaccines, drugs, and chemicals and bad food. And people and animals are born with this wonderful, healthy immune system. And then we start destroying it. And so then you have problems with all these critters, the fleas, the ticks. And I've taken in rescue dogs that were absolutely covered with fleas. In fact, I had to ask a teenage boy in the neighborhood to come and sit with me and pick off these fleas. I mean, there were literally hundreds.
Wow.
So we pick off the fleas, and then the next day, not the fleas, the ticks. Oh. And the next day, the dogs would be covered with them again. This went on for about 3 months.
Wow.
And it got less and less ticks each time, but it took that long. And then finally, the dog no longer had ticks of any kind.
So how did you treat? You said that was because what? How did you treat it?
With nutrition and homeopathy. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So in other words,
so then finally their immune systems were built up, so the ticks were no longer interested in them. Ticks and fleas are interested in your dogs because they live on the blood that they suck from your animals. And that's their job. And if we didn't have fleas and ticks in the wild that were cleaning up all the carcasses, see, they start the cleanup. As anybody knows, if you find a dog that's been injured in the wild, the dog, by the time you find it, the flies will be all over this dog. And hopefully the dog is still alive and you can start taking care of it. But other times the dog is dead. But the flies and ticks are just doing their job. People have to understand that.
Okay. Now that you mentioned that, I did pick up a dog. He was alive on the street one day because I thought it was going to get hit by a car, and I tried to take it to the local fire station down the street, but they said they couldn't take him, and I ended up taking him to a Detroit, they call it Detroit Dog Care and Rescue. And I was never able, the lady told me I could come back and see the dog. And I always felt bad afterwards that I didn't just take him straight to a vet. But when I did go back and ask about him, I hope the lady was telling me the truth. She said they had taken him down the street to a much nicer place. But he had been bitten up by flies. Now that you say that, and that just made me think of him. And he had a collar on him, but he had apparently been abandoned because the people on the street told me that he used to run with another little dog up and down the street, and they don't know what happened to the little dog. But he was just standing there in the street, and I just couldn't keep going. And I actually went to McDonald's and got a couple hamburgers to get him in the car. And when he got in the car, he got in the back seat first. He ate the hamburgers, and then he jumped. I went to go in the fire station, and when I came back out, he had gotten in the front seat, and he was like he was ready to go for a ride. And I think that's what it was kind of heartbreaking, because I took him right to the rescue, because at the time I had a very ill cat that was actually dying, and I couldn't bring him. I knew I couldn't bring him into the house with us. And but anyway, I always hoped that when the lady said, "Oh, he's going to get adopted right away," and when I asked her, that he didn't have a name tag on, he just had a collar on. And I said, "Well, can I come back or call back and check on him and see how he's doing?" But I was never able to see him again or find out any other information, other than the lady said, "Oh, I think that was the dog that came in with all the fly bites on him, and they took him down to the big nicer rescue facility down in Detroit. It's a really $1 million project that they have down there." So I was hopeful that he was able to finally get adopted, but he seemed like he was a very, very friendly dog. That's the only time I've ever done that, and I don't know why, but I couldn't keep driving and leave him in the street like that. So
Right. Good for
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. So, but anyway, yeah,
And
that's
as far as stomach aches,
mhm,
I can even tell people that the usual remedy for that
mhm.
is a homeopathic remedy called Nux vomica. Now, that isn't always the remedy, but I would say more than half of the time, that's the one the dog needs.
Is
Um,
is that
and
VOX? I think I've seen that. How do you spell that? VO.
NUX, second word, V as in Victor, OMIC as in Charlie.
CA? A? CA? Vomica?
Nux,
Oh,
Nux vomica. Right.
Nox Vomica. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Okay.
It's
So,
very seldom that I can ever say, tell people there's a remedy. A couple others I can tell them. One,
okay.
if your dog is ever injured in any way, doesn't make any difference what the injury is, the very first thing you give is a homeopathic remedy called arnica.
Arnica,
And the second
yes.
word is Montana. And
Montana.
arnica, Montana. Yes.
And I know that's ARNICA, and then Montana,
Yep.
MONTANA. And that's for any
Right.
injury. Yeah. Isn't that like helps with
Injury at all.
inflammation?
Immediately give a dose of the arnica, Montana, and then email me, and I'll tell you what to do next.
And that's at, you want to say your email, Pat? Email address?
It's Pat at patmckay.com.
Pat at patmckay.com. PAT at PATMCKAY.com. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So, can you tell us any other maybe common conditions that can be
Well, I
treated?
could tell you about another remedy that
Okay.
is, it's aconitum, and the second word is Napolis. But that it can be given any time that your dog is frightened by something. In other words, 4th of July, when everybody's doing fireworks and crazy things like that, you can, or your dog was just frightened by another dog. And, you could tell that your dog was, or cat, was truly frightened. Then you give a dose of the aconitum, and the second word is napellus.
Okay, aconitum napellus. Are these remedies in the are these remedies in the Helios emergency homeopathic kits that you can get from Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
And what you want, there's always a number after each remedy, and that tells the potency of that remedy. And what you want is 30C. 30C as in Charlie. And sometimes you'll, right.
Oh, go ahead.
So those are pretty consistent, those 3 remedies. And everybody ought to have those on hand. Yep.
Okay, and what was the third one? We have the first one was Arnica montana, and then the other one was I can't pronounce it, napellus. And what was aconitum napellus?
And then the first one I gave was nux vomica.
Vox nomica. Vox nomica for vomiting. Oh, okay, got you. So, so we have, those are 3 good remedies for an animal that has been frightened, an animal that may be vomiting, and an animal that has been injured. And again, all of those are in that Helios homeopathic remedy emergency kit. So now, are these remedies that you use these remedies from the Helios kit, but you use all homeopathic remedies, but this is just the kit that you recommend that we should have basically in our quote medicine cabinet or homeopathic medicine cabinet. And I'm definitely
one of the very best that's out there is an emergency kit put together by Helios. Helios is the name of the company. HELIOS. So, for instance, just put in Amazon.com Helios homeopathic kit, and then it'll come up. And the one you want is, I think it's $74.95 or $74.99 or whatever. But in that kit, you get 36 remedies. So you can see you're getting them for like a little over $2 a bottle. That's incredible.
Yeah. Because I've bought them individually, and I am that's the one I'm going to order, the $74.99, because I also think there's a lot of information about the remedies in there too. So that's the one I'm getting.
Be careful. No, you can't do it on your own.
Right.
Please, people, even if you give the 3 that I have suggested, after you've given them, email me and I'll tell you what to do next. Don't start thinking that all of a sudden in this our podcast you're going to become a homeopath. No.
Right. No, we're not thinking that. But I was just saying that, there might just be information.
I worked with my homeopathic instructor for 2 solid years before I gave my first remedy to anybody without checking with him first. I mean,
Got
you
it.
have to know what you're doing with homeopathy.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question about that. Yeah, no question.
I mean,
So,
don't think that if a homeopath doesn't have at least 4 years of classes and study and research, I wouldn't have anything to do with them.
okay.
Yeah, it
And
takes a long time. Remember,
right.
there are like 2,000 remedies. Now, how
Wow.
are you going to know which one of those remedies to give? And
Right.
even though you get a kit with 36 remedies, it may not have the one we need. In
Right.
most cases, it does, but because they're selected for emergency and for typical care, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, I do have a question. The homeopathic remedies are, I'm assuming, made out of, you said, natural herbs and such. Are they, how are they different from the flower remedies? Which I know the flower remedies, like Bach flower remedies, they are basically used mainly for emotional support and help and that type of thing. What would you say the difference between the flower remedies and the homeopathic remedies are, if you know?
Well, it's a totally different way of looking at what's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay, but it's definitely not as complete and thorough as homeopathy.
Okay.
So I don't even get into Bach flowers. I just
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
And I don't get into herbs. I
Okay.
did a whole study on herbs for a couple
Oh.
of years, many, many years ago. And when I heard what homeopathic remedies can do, I said, no more herbs, no more Bach flower,
Mm-hmm.
no more gemotherapy. No, I'm going to stick with homeopathy.
Well, I appreciate that. That's being laser focused, and I think people appreciate it because if you, like me, I've got, I'm tried this and that and the other. I mean, I've used different products, not, successfully. So I've tried many different things, but I think I can appreciate a person who stays laser focused in one area because then you feel like you're really getting the best of that area and that from that person. I kind of brought it up
And the
because,
one thing we haven't touched on yet, which is
okay.
very important,
Okay.
is to cover end of life.
Yes, that is always so hard for me, but yes, we are going to go ahead. If you want to go ahead and we can speak on that now. So, um,
Yeah.
go ahead.
There are probably a dozen remedies that help an animal through the dying process. And now, those same remedies, if the animal has the vital life force, that same remedy will cause that animal to rally. If the animal doesn't have the vital life force, it will help the animal leave the earth. Okay? So
Okay.
it's the same remedy, and you have to know what you're doing. So I'm telling you, anybody that prefers to have their animal die at home, contact me. Don't try to do any of this on your own. And
Right.
the nice part about this is that now the animal decides when to leave.
Oh,
The
okay.
animal may want to rally. And so that's up to the animal. If you go to the vet and have your animal euthanized, the animal doesn't have any choice. The vet's going to
Right.
kill him.
Right.
So that's the huge difference. So I work with quite a few people whose animals appear as if they have all these typical symptoms of dying, in which many people at that point take them to the vet. I tell them, let's work homeopathically first and see. Maybe the animal wants to rally. And
Right.
I've had cats who have lived a year or two longer. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
The person was going to take her cat to the vet to be euthanized. I said, let's do one of these remedies. We did. Her cat lived for another full year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought of that.
So,
That makes sense. Okay.
yeah.
I guess I never thought of the concept of life force. Can you, I was going to ask you, what do you mean by vital life force? But I think I understand it, but maybe if you can clarify. But what I'm understanding you to say that, which really makes sense, I hadn't thought about that before, that the remedy will either help the cat to rally or the dog, right? Cat or dog or any animal, I'm assuming. Um, or if they don't have the life force. So what do you mean by if they don't have the vital life force? Is that what you mean by their choice?
Yes. Because we don't know whether they have. I mean, I don't know. You don't know. None of your
Right,
listeners know
right,
when you're going to die.
right,
Somebody may die today, and somebody may live to 100. So, I
right.
mean, we don't know, and I'm so glad that nobody knows the lifespan. You see what I mean?
Yeah, same, absolutely. I think, if we did, we'd be worrying every day. The closer and closer it
That's
gets to
right.
that.
Or you'd
So
plan your life so differently if you
that's true.
knew when you were going to die.
Right, right.